I would like to welcome at this point Commissioner Jeff Rose to provide his review of the purpose of tonight's hearing and to provide an overview of his draft decision on the Mount Sunapee Master Development Plan. Jeff?
Great, thanks Nate. And hopefully everybody's had the opportunity to review. There was really a couple of key components to that. There are copies of my statement that I issued that day on April 16th. But there's also a really important, I think, sort of a response document that tried to take a lot of the comments that we received and provide the response and try to be hopefully as succinct and clear and honest and open as possible on the thought process that went behind a lot of the approval with the various conditions that were inputted. So I would encourage folks, if you haven't had a chance, to go onto the State Parks website under Mount Sunapee, and there is it's about a 30-page document that really details the responses to the questions that were presented from the last public comment period. But I know things have changed. This is a different MDP, EMDP, EDP from when it was first introduced last summer. So I thought it was really important to have a second public comment period. We are in the midst of that now. So we're in the middle of a 50-day public comment period that started the afternoon of which we made the initial announcement back in April. And it will go for an additional month from today. So through June 5th, we'll be still accepting comments. So for people here tonight that do not choose to speak or have additional comments, you have really through June 5th. So I encourage people to provide their comments. We can accept them either via writing or via email, and certainly those people who choose to speak tonight. So, and then from there, I'll review, and as I referenced, this is a draft. It's not a firm final, but it is something that I feel comfortable with. But at the same time, there's been a lot of thought in trying to bring forward a balanced response to the MDP, and I believe there's a lot of good documentation to justify the rationale behind that decision. So with that, I appreciate your attention, I appreciate you being here, and I look forward to constructive dialogue here in terms of receiving feedback from you on that draft decision that was brought forward. So thank you again for being here, and I look forward to continuing the public process. With that, I'll turn it back to Nate.
We ask that everyone here tonight respect everyone's input. We recognize that there may be disagreements between your opinions, but please, no disruptive behavior or personal attacks or profanity. For those of you who wish to submit written comments, you may submit your comments to the Department of Resources and Economic Development by June 5th. There are comment forms available at the exit that you can leave in the drop box or mail in. The department is also accepting emailed comments, and Taurine, is the email address mountsunapeecomments@dred.nh.gov? Okay, mountsunapeecomments@dred.nh.gov if you wish to submit your comments by email. At this point, we'll begin the public hearing process and hear public comments.
My name is Drew Kellner. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. My legal residence is Brookline, New Hampshire, and my winter residence is Sunapee, New Hampshire. I support the draft decision. My mother was born and raised in New London. She attended Colby Sawyer and for many years taught skiing at this very area. She taught me to ski in the classic style and would joke or perhaps threaten that if I didn't keep my knees together, she was going to tie a rope around them. This is my mother in 1947 at the age of 5, holding her father's wooden skis. Yes, 1947, before the Mount Sunapee ski area officially opened. Those who know the history of skiing in this area know it had been going on for decades before any chairlift or aerial tram was even thought of. Some say as early as 1890. My own children now ski at the mountain, which make them the 4th generation to do so. And it's not uncommon to find 3 generations of us skiing together and riding the chairlift together. I'm sure the skiing families in the room will agree that a day on the slopes is a fun and healthy way to enjoy the winter. Conversations with kids on the lift, whether they're your own or others, are priceless. I view this discussion as largely one of conservation versus preservation. Conservation would envision an area in which humans and nature could happily coexist, while preservation would look to provide spaces solely for wildlife, protecting them and providing a refuge free of human influence. There is clearly a need for both in the Mount Sunapee area. The abandonment of the East Bowl project is a wonderful example where preservation was followed by all involved and was the correct decisions for the characteristics of that land. The proposed expansion in the West Bowl strikes the correct balance necessary for conservation, and the conditions Commissioner Rose placed on the plan help protect the most critical areas of that land. As a skier and a conservationist, I'm sure Teddy Roosevelt would have agreed. So I thank the entire committee for their work. I urge you to finalize the decision, and I encourage Governor Hassan and the Executive Council to approve it. Thank you.
Hello? Yep, there we go. I'm Paul Johnson. I live in Newport, New Hampshire here. And I'm representing myself and the ski bums in the audience, because that's kind of the group I'm part of. I just wanted to get up here just to sort of follow what the fine gentleman ahead of me was saying. And that is, I grew up skiing. It's been not just something I've been doing my whole life, it's something I've been my whole life. It's part of who I am. My fondest memories are the times I spent as a child skiing here with my dad. You can't put a value on that. It's just something that just brings you together, makes your family whole. And that's what we did here at Mount Sunapee, and at Wildcat, and at other places too. But it's just such an integral part of my being to be part of this environment here. I ski a lot. I live here because the ski area is here. I live in the Sunapee area because of Mount Sunapee. I don't live next to Killington. I don't live next to Stratton. I live next to Sunapee. It's because I love the rural atmosphere that goes with it. The fact that we're not a condo complex ski area, which is fine. There's a lot of fun skiing there, but Sunapee is Sunapee, and we're going to keep it that way. I'm a big fan of the West Bowl expansion, just like I was a huge proponent of the privatization of the mountain. All I saw since the state gave up trying to run a ski area, which they didn't know what they were doing, excuse me, but I've seen nothing but fabulous improvements on this mountain. It's a cleaner, safer, nicer place than it ever used to be, and I want to keep it moving in that direction. Give the families a place to play. Get the kids out of the friggin' couch looking at the video games and put them on a mountain where they'll have a life that they enjoy. Thank you.
No? Is that better?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
My name is Catherine Bishoyev. I live in Sunapee. I am a member of Friends of Mount Sunapee, and I'm on the board. I oppose the resort expansion of the park. As a former business owner for nearly 30 years, in all due respect, Commissioner, I believe this plan represents both bad planning and bad economic development that we can't afford. From a planning perspective, we are discussing expansion of a treasured state park. And we have yet still no description of what the state or the resort operators envision after 5 years. Absent from the plan is any explanation as to if or more resort development will ensure balanced use and affordable access for all. A state park study in 2010 found that more than 70% of New Hampshire residents want their parks to provide traditional outdoor recreation, hiking, snowshoeing, picnicking, camping, fishing, and the like. I believe if we're planning the future of our park, we need to account for these in this new area now in the planning process, with ample opportunity for public engagement and input. If the state and the resort want to expand the park, let's see the long-term build-out plan, evaluate its viability, assess all its impacts, including environmental, which has not been done during this process, not after decisions are made. From a dollar and cents perspective, I believe this expansion will not grow our economy and provide for a more affordable and living community. Actually, I believe it will have the opposite effect. Property taxes around the mountain will continue to rise and drive out more locals. This also discourages young families and new business owners and entrepreneurs from moving in and investing here and in our state. After 17 years of resort-managed operation of the ski area, we are stuck with a stagnant and declining job market, which suggests to me that we need to move in a different direction. Great, good jobs and authentic experiences have great value. Again, for me, resort expansion will not offer either. This expansion plan represents, in my mind, a misuse and bad use of our most valuable public natural resources. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jim Williams. I'm from Sunapee, New Hampshire. I rise in opposition to the Mount Sunapee expansion. Thank you.
Thank you. John Lund is up, Brenda Shapiro is on deck, and Kathy Hebert is in the hole.
Good evening. My name is John Lund. I live in Newport, and I can see Mount Sunapee from my kitchen window. I'm speaking for myself. I'm opposed to the expansion of the mountain. I'm not opposed to skiing, and I think that there's no reason why we can't find compromises that will work effectively for everyone. But I object to the expansion proposal and disagree strongly with Commissioner Rose's assertions that there are public benefits to this project. And I think that the public benefits are the important issue here. Local business economy will not see any public benefit. A resort by its function is meant to be a closed unit and not have any money leaking off-site. Like a cruise ship, they supply all the amenities, so there's no reason to go anywhere. This means that every customer that spends money at the resort, restaurants and hotels, retail outlets, is a customer that other local businesses won't have. Paying rooms and meals tax is not a public benefit. Since when has paying taxes been categorized as a public benefit and not a responsibility? Should every business in the state be given public lands and tax incentives simply by paying their business profit tax? If the resort does not offer visitors any amenities aside from recreational, local businesses would. Therefore, tax revenues remain neutral. I'd like to also say that the owners, or the corporation, has sued the state 5 times since they've signed this current agreement, and the town of Newbury once because they didn't like the terms of the deal they signed. They wanted access to land that was outside the purview of their contract. They stopped at 5 because that's when they got their way. If the judges hadn't conceded, who knows how many more years we'd be litigating. It cost the state over 2,000 hours of legal advice, time, and court costs. This does not come cheap, and it's definitely not in public benefit. If they didn't like the contract but signed it anyway, what happens if the new agreement isn't to their satisfaction, even if they sign it? I'll leave the rest for written submission. Thank you very much.
Yes, hi, my name's Brenda Shapiro. I live in Sunapee, and I'm on the board of the Friends of Mount Sunapee, but I'm also representing myself. I moved to this area to ski at Mount Sunapee because it was not an overdeveloped ski area. I love skiing here, and now that I'm old, I can afford it because I have a midweek pass. But when I talk to a lot of people who have young families, they said they would love to ski, but they can't afford the prices. And when I talk to people on the chairlift, they say they follow the twofers, which is what I did originally. So, you know, obviously I didn't say it up front, but I am opposed to the expansion to the West Bowl. The prices will go up, and people just won't be able to afford it anymore. So it's just going to be become an elite sport, which I think it already is. Also, I learned something about Brook Road, that Brook Road is a state road, but since it doesn't have a number, it doesn't get any federal funds. and it's a small windy road, so with all this extra traffic, it's going to cost the state a fortune to maintain Brook Road up to standards. And I was wondering if you plan to do another traffic study before you make your final decision, because the other one was like 10 years old. Is there any plans for a new traffic study? There is, before the final decision.
No, it would be part of, I've had conversations with DOT, and they would be required to do a traffic study as they go through their permitting process that would have to take place. They'd have to go through all the state and local permitting process before that project could move forward. So it would be required as part of the permitting process for the project.
But not before your final decision. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Can I ask for a point of order? I have a question, and I don't want it to be part of my 2 minutes comment time.
Sure, if you have a brief question.
Yes, where is the 12,000 base lodge and where's the parking lot? I haven't been able to find it on any of the maps.
Thank you for that question. On the maps in the back, there should be, it is hard to make out, but there is a small area in red where the base lodge would be located. The parking lot is not indicated here because it would need to be engineered to determine the most appropriate location for that parking lot. But it would, I spoke to it, that it would be part of the land that is transferred to the state within that 150 acres. So all the operations within that for the ski mountain would be part of the state land.
So those would be cited before you make your decision?
They would need to go through the engineering plans and have to go through the permitting process that would be required before any project were to move forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathy Huber, resident of Newport, New Hampshire. I also own retail businesses, east, west, north, and south of the state park. I oppose the West Bowl expansion, and I am dismayed that your draft regarding the expansion does not address the ownership, the potential transfer, and sale, once again, of the Mount Sunapee lease. Your agency has been negligent in ensuring the proper safeguards in regards to who owns the lease. Since 1998, the lease has been transferred to three different owners. The last owner, Triple Peak, which also owns the Sunapee lease, Okemo and Crested View, sold their entity to C&L Lifestyle Corporation in Florida for $132 million in 2008. The C&L Lifestyle Corporation in Florida is currently the Mount Sunapee lease owner now. That is the lease owner, not the Mullers. They're the operators of the subleasees. C&L has about $2.5 billion for assets. One of their portfolio is 16 ski areas. It's Mount Sunapee, Loon, Sunday River, Okemo, and others. C&L has publicly stated that they may sell the REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust, that holds these ski properties when it expires in 2015 to increase stockholders' profit and to increase liquidity of the company since their earnings dropped 24%. Who will own the lease if C&L sells? How do you know if the owners are financially solvent to do this expansion? This is crucial. Past owners have put liens on our lease to collateralize investments, credit lines, and what happens if the new owners have financial difficulty? Change the current operators and leverage the improvements. I have much more, but I'm sure I can't say it. This is a big business corporate handout to a litigious corporate partner. Governor Lynch wrote to me, I am exposed to expanding the lease because I have not seen compelling proof of strong public benefit. What has changed?
Hi, I'm John Feifel. You're not doing a great job on that name. That's okay. It's happened many times
I
before.
apologize. I'm going to butcher a few names tonight.
My wife, Mel, and I are 44-plus year residents of Bradford. I've been a selectman there in the 80s. I'm a selectman there again now. Growing up, my parents moved us to Sugarloaf Mountain in 1960. We doubled, our family of 6, doubled the population of Crockertown. Drive into Sugarloaf today, you'll see hundreds of buildings, and it's a beautiful, beautiful resort. It's a wonderful economic driver for the region, and it's just a wonderful thing to see. They actually have a corner as you go around and approaching the mountain from Kingfield. They call it Egad Corner. It's so impressive the way nature and the ski area come together. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to see. My wife and I often reflect the same thing. We're out in the boat on Sunapee, looking up the trails here. We absolutely think it's gorgeous. And we think expanding it is nothing but beneficial for the mountain, for the area, for the employees that you generate. People talk about, oh, there's only part-time employees here. I disagree. They're not just part-time employees. They're some of the nicest people in the state. From people who drive the trucks in the yard, the people who let you on the lifts. There are 650 of them. 650 people employed by this wonderful corporation. And people complain, I hope it goes to 750 if this thing goes through. Nothing but better things could happen. As a selectman, we did write, and I don't represent the town in this regard, we wrote a letter supporting, all 3 of us supporting the endeavor, and we stand behind that. We also note that the state is spending a lot of money up in Berlin where there's 30% unemployment. The state's not doing this. Look at this wonderful building. When the Muellers took over, this wasn't here. Now look at it. Everybody says how nice it is and how beautiful. This has the best snowmaking. It has the best grooming in the state. It wins awards because they do an excellent job. We should see them expand. We should see more jobs. And my 8 grandchildren enjoy skiing here very much. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Will Abbott. I live in Holderness, and I'm here tonight representing the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests. Since the first discussion of leasing the ski area here at Mount Sunapee State Park, the Forest Society has been most concerned with the protection of the natural integrity of the park, its natural beauty, its natural resources, and its place as a destination for public recreation. While we would agree that some positive changes have been made in the Commissioner's draft decision, we think there are still many decisions left before a final decision could fully protect the park and the public values that make it and New Hampshire State Park System distinctive. The Forest Society will provide more comprehensive comments, but tonight I'd like to focus on 3 specific issues. First, we appreciate DRED's recognition that any ski expansion needs to be on land owned by the state. We believe it is a constructive step forward for the resort to agree to donate 400 acres to enlarge the state park as proposed in the Commissioner's draft decision. That said, we strongly believe that DRED should condition its approval for any expansion on the requirement that all lands to be donated to the state be conveyed before a shovel hits the ground on any West Bowl expansion. If the state does not own the dirt first, then there should be no expansion. Second, we also appreciate the draft decision's recognition that no one, including abutting landowners, should have any exclusive access rights to the state park. It's extremely important, if a final decision is rendered recommending the expansion, that DRED fully clarify and explain how it plans to monitor and enforce these provisions. Third, if land is to be donated to the state to mitigate adverse impacts of the expansion on the exemplary natural community system identified by DRED's Natural Heritage Bureau, it should not only be conveyed before the shovel hits the ground, but also it should be permanently and legally protected from any further development. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Catherine Hurd. I am a resident of Sunapee. I am opposed to the expansion of the Mount Sunapee Resort. I grew up in Goshen. I grew up on Brook Road, just a couple hundred yards from the Summit Trail. And as a teenager, as an adult, I have hiked there so many times and really, really treasure the wilderness that is on that trail. And I was out there hiking with my husband a couple weeks ago, and we had heard a little bit about what was happening here at the mountain, but wasn't really sure about the specifics and what was going on. But we had just decided to go out together to hike and get in shape. You know, we're both active outdoors people. We love to hunt, we love to fish. And so we said, well, let's go hike Sunapee. You know, it's right in our backyard. It's right here. We don't have to pay anything to use the trail. So we started hiking, and we bumped into a couple people along the way who talked to us about what was going on, and it was really devastating to hear that news, because this mountain it's a state park, and as a citizen of Sunapee, as a former citizen of Goshen, I just don't understand how a state park can be sold and developed to profit private investors. It doesn't make sense to me, because this is land that has been set aside for people to use for free. I can walk out my back door and I can walk from Sunapee all the way down to Monadnock on the Greenway Trail. I don't have to pay anybody to do that. I don't have to rent equipment. I don't have to buy a pass. I don't have to do anything to profit someone else. I can do this because this is a part of nature. And as a steward of the land, isn't it our responsibility to take care of this and preserve the land that has already been set aside for enjoyment and for years to come in such a beautiful and exemplary forest, that I have a hard time wrestling with that, to just profit a few select people when so many others will not be benefiting from it. So thank you.
Jay Flanders, Newbury, New Hampshire. I am representing myself as well as the freedom-loving citizens of New Hampshire. There are a few points here that were made. The economic benefits for the area. Well, this place has been, well, I guess it's been 16 years now, and in those 16 years I've seen, I can't count how many new owners to the restaurant at the traffic circle. As far as taxes promised to Newbury and Goshen, well, this came up 16 years ago. Newbury was, yeah, we're going to get taxes from that place finally. Well, we got lawyers. Goshen can expect the same thing. We didn't get the taxes. Stewardship. Mr. Rose, I would ask you to please take a ride up the access road from the third parking lot, the road that goes up to the campground, and you tell me what condition that's in and what the stewardship of this area is. Skiing has changed. It used to be when the state owned it, maybe it wasn't the best run, but they knew when to tell people not to come anymore. Nowadays, the line starts when you get off the lift, whereas it used to be the line started before you get on the lift. There's no breaks in the prices for the tickets for the local, Newbury people. If you were over the age of 65, you used to get to ski free. If you were a state resident, you got a break on your ticket. No more. I'm not for this expansion. It doesn't make any sense on many levels. It's a very, very special forest out there. And to cut it down to make a ski area, come on. Do something with what you have. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dawn Emery, and I live in Goshen, New Hampshire, and I'm speaking for myself tonight. I strongly oppose the expansion of the ski area at Mount Sunapee State Park, because our state park should offer a wide variety of recreational opportunities. This plan would expand skiing at the expense of other uses such as walking, hunting, hiking, fishing, nature photography, camping, trail running, backpacking, nature study, and finding peace and quiet from a hectic day. As a biology teacher, I utilize the park's Summit Trail as a living laboratory to teach my environmental science students forest ecology. What more authentic application of textbook knowledge can you give these young citizens of our community? These future biology teachers, foresters, loggers, wildlife biologists, state park employees, than to have them explore the biodiversity of our Mount Sunapee State Park from base to summit. For many students, the hands-on experience that their study of Mount Sunapee provides is a turning point in their decision to pursue a college education. Expansion of the ski area on the west side of Mount Sunapee State Park will forever alter and compromise this living laboratory. What lesson would you have these young people take away? That Dred upheld the public trust and continue to protect this area for a wide array of public uses? Or that this land that has been protected for over 100 years has been sold out for development? Thank you.
My name is Elizabeth Lyons. I'm representing myself as a Sunapee resident, and I strongly oppose the proposed West Bowl expansion. The importance of the Mount Sunapee environment and the need for its conservation was recognized over a century ago and led to the creation of the state park. Efforts to expand protection of the Pillsbury-Sunapee Highlands continue to this day. I know. I've supported the efforts of the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests, as well as local land conservancies, to do just that. Areas on Mount Sunapee have been identified by the state as exemplary forest, including that infamous Polygon D, which the proposed West Bowl expansion would cut with a ski lift as well as a ski trail. Commissioner Rose's draft decision moves the trail, but still allows a ski lift to cut through this ecosystem, which the National Natural Heritage Bureau categorized as exemplary and of statewide significance. Such areas are rare and should be protected by additional buffers between them and any land disturbance. They are not appropriate for ski lifts or ski trails. Responsible management of natural resources is one of 4 areas that DRED is to consider in its decision-making. However, as many who have commented when the MPD and EMP was first released, environmental information is often lacking or dated. For example, the hydrologic studies used are over a decade old. This means that recent climate change, such as the increase in intensity and frequency of storm events, was not considered in evaluating potential runoff impacts to both the watershed and infrastructure. Traffic studies are similarly outdated. The Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Regional Planning Commission testified that all potential real estate development associated with the ski resort, including that on adjacent lands, be included in the MPD so that decisions are based on the entire scope of the proposed project. Without complete information, how can any meaningful analysis be done of potential impacts? DRED acknowledged some of these omissions and directed the applicant to update the information, yet went ahead and gave conditional approval. Balanced consideration means having the facts before making any decision. That is what I trust my public officials to do. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chris Kane, and I am the owner of Kane Conservation and Environmental Consulting Firm in Concord, and I'm representing myself in these comments. In my comments tonight, I offer my historical and ecological perspective on the West Bowl ski expansion based on years of studying the forest there. Over 100 years ago, before a ski area was even contemplated, the upper slopes of what is now Mount Sunapee State Park were purchased by a group of concerned citizens and the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests, specifically to protect an ancient forest from logging disturbance. Somehow this knowledge of the ancient forest receded in memory until its rediscovery only in 1997. Since that year, a number of state-sponsored studies have confirmed that much of the upper slopes of Mount Sunapee, including much of the West Bowl expansion area, have never been logged, even selectively. Thus, the state park contains an exceptionally rare vestige of primeval forest that has been allowed to develop naturally over thousands of years. This entire forest area is now designated an exemplary natural community system, one of the best remaining examples of New Hampshire's biodiversity. The primeval forest on Mount Sunapee has evolved the resilience to sustain natural disturbances, including fire, drought, hurricanes, ice storms, and insect infestations. But the permanent fragmentation of the forest into islands between open trails and the lift line are a different matter. The detrimental effects of such fragmentation are predictable and well documented. Mitigation parcels would not repair the damage, and study plots would merely document the degradation. As Commissioner Rose stated on April 16th, Mount Sunapee State Park is one of the jewels of our state park system. I propose that the actual jewel is a miracle of nature, an ancient forest surviving in the absence of human endeavor. The proposed expansion would cause permanent damage to this unique natural resource, and for this reason, I must oppose the draft decision as written. Thank you.
My name is Deb Flanders, and I'm from Newbury, and I'm representing myself. I agree with what others are saying. This expansion plan is bad economic development and bad use of our most valuable resources. I grew up skiing at Mount Sunapee, and I went on to become a U.S. ski team member, professional ski racer, and internationally certified ski coach. As a member of the skiing community, I returned to my roots here in Sunapee after spending 30 years living in ski resort towns throughout the West. Over those 30 years, I saw big changes to those communities when corporate ski companies went into the real estate business. I think that to ignore the possibility of that in making any decisions about the future of Mount Sunapee State Park is to be ignoring the public outcry that's going on here. With global warming, skiing will become ever more expensive with increased snowmaking and energy costs rising. The skier numbers are flat in the industry. Does it make sense to put the future of the state park out on a limb on an industry that is seeing no growth? The jobs that will be created are low pay. I couldn't afford to live in Newbury on those kind of wages. I moved back here because I could no longer afford the cost of living in Western resort towns. There needs to be an independent environmental impact assessment. The one in the master plan is very incomplete. The land that Okima wants to give the state in trade for the expansion already has been protected by taxpayer dollars in New Hampshire. More is not necessarily better. There are already several expansion opportunities that have been okayed on the master plan that have not been implemented. I would like to see some of those plans completed first before asking for more. Thank you, Commissioner Rose, for hearing us speak, and I hope all the politicians will keep high moral standards. Thank you.
David Brown, Sunapee. I oppose the Bulk West Pole expansion. I speak for myself. Asked about their intentions for a residential build-out, the resort continues to claim we have no plans at this time. In fact, the request to build 250 residential units along the slopes of Mount Sunapee are in their current plans. The plans have been submitted in the form of a traffic study, a request for roads to service a base lodge and up to 250 residential units. This is their intentions and is officially submitted in the current master development plan in conjunction with a state-owned ski area that will service these private dwellings. This agreement locks the state into an obligation that should not exist. State highway costs associated with this proposal are critical to be known and assessed in advance of any approval. If there are errors of fact within the currently submitted traffic study, it needs to be retracted in its entirety. Over 9 years, the developers have sued the state of New Hampshire for $13 million based on the claim they were being deprived of access to using the state park as an amenity to service their private properties. The cost of this 9-year litigation taxed the efforts of our state's legal team to acquiesce. Now Commissioner Rose paves the way, enabling the developers by allowing them additional time before the transfer of lands in order to meet local density requirements. You don't need to meet density requirements to build a ski area. Density requirements are specifically for residential build-out.
Okay, hi, my name is Caitlin Bashoyev. I am a resident of Sunapee, New Hampshire. I represent myself, and I oppose this expansion. So as someone who grew up here in Sunapee and skied at Sunapee, I'm 25 years old, so I represent the younger generation of people. And the younger generation that might want to someday raise a family here. And there's a couple things I see in this plan and a couple reasons why I oppose it. The first being that what I first see when I look at this plan from the research I've done and from what I've learned at the school that I went to school for environmental studies and also sustainable development. And what I see in this plan from the research I've done is that this plan looks like the first step in a series of expansions and other proposed plans that will lead to a commercial resort. Commercial resorts are not good for economic development. So first of all, I see this plan as a dead end for economic development. I totally think this area needs economic development. I think this is a poor plan for it. Secondly, sorry, I want to read through my points. I didn't really write out a speech like most people did. Yeah, secondly, as the younger generation, most of my friends have moved away from this area. There's a reason for that, okay? And, you know, if you want to economically develop the area, you need to appeal to the generation that's going to be living here. And this kind of expansion, with the, you know, the things that are in this plan, the mountain coaster, the trails that you're proposing, none of that is going to appeal to the younger generation or my friends and bring them back. So I'm not really sure what the point of this expansion is if it is not to turn this resort into a commercial resort. This is a poor plan. It doesn't represent sustainable development that's going to be sustained in the future. It's just not a smart plan. So I'll leave the rest for written comment. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peter Brennan. I'm speaking for myself. I'm a resident of Goshen, and I oppose the expansion. There are many points that I would like to make in my opposition, but I've narrowed it down to two just to time constraints. One, Commissioner Rose, you received a letter from the Goshen Selectmen unanimously supporting the concept of the West Bowl expansion. I am not privy to what concept they supported, a concept being a theoretical construct. Next, it states that the residents of Goshen recently voted to approve creation of a recreational district. That's true. However, it goes on to say that approval was in anticipation of such an expansion. That is quite a stretch, as many people in Goshen are opposed to the West Bowl expansion, and unfortunately, many people don't know anything about it at all, and certainly did not make an automatic correlation between the two subjects at the voting booth. Next, and finally, much of the opposition comes from the anticipated construction of condominiums. Mount Sunapee has told us that they have no plans. Yet in the Union Leader in January of 2007, in an editorial mostly devoted to Mountain Reach, which since backed out because they felt the economy would not support said construction, it states, and I quote, "The operators of Mount Sunapee, Tim and Diane Mueller, have requested that the state expand its leasehold area so that trails can be cut to create a slopeside village. That plan met with local opposition, and Bald said these discussions are currently on hold," unquote. I think that you can understand my skepticism on this subject, and I thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Margot Steves. I live in Newberry, and I'm opposed to the expansion of Mount Sunapee Resort. And I would like to say, that's really all I meant to say, but I'd like to add that my children, 4 children, grew up here skiing at Mount Sunapee. They learned to ski on the rope tow, which was free back then. They all became extremely good skiers. And the only child now who still lives in the area can't afford to ski at Mount Sunapee. He takes his family of 2 children and his wife, and they go over to Gunstock. They drive over there. They drive back, and they have ski lessons, race lessons, and they still save money. It seems to me that that's a really sad thing. All these people who have been talking about how they grew up skiing here. Well, there's not many people who grew up skiing here that can still do that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve Eads. I am opposed to this expansion. Have been opposed to the initial lease from the beginning. The first night that we sat in Sunapee Gymnasium at a so-called public hearing, it just seemed like it was a given, that it was already a done deal. I think this is short-sighted in the fact that we're going to be gone in 40 years. The lease will be up then. What if our kids decide they don't want this ski area? They're going to have condominiums on the west side. It's not viable to put a ski slope to the west. It just doesn't make any sense when we decide to take back the mountain to run it as well as Cannon's being run, like this used to be run. Then we're going to be sued by these folks again and again and again. I think it's really too bad that you're going to put the onus on Goshen to have to fight the development. It seems like you don't want to talk about it, but that's the only reason to put in a west-facing ski slope. The sun beats on it, just doesn't make sense. I think it's really not a good idea to extend the lease at this time, where you don't know who you're extending it to. And the way I understand the lease, you have no say over who takes this over and what's going to happen. We don't know if the Muellers are still going to be here to operate this, even. You don't know what you're going to get. I would like to go back. Everybody says how great this is now. I grew up skiing at Mount Sunapee also, with the old Tucker Cats, and those guys' hands were tied by the state legislature as to what they could do. They couldn't put snowmaking in because it would impact the local areas. When they would shut off the number of skiers at Mount Sunapee, it was limited. And guess where the overflow went? It went to Whaleback, it went to King Ridge, and it went to Ragged Mountain. We spread it out. That's economic development. That's what the state should be looking at.
Wow. Hi, this is okay right here? My name is Fred Smith. I live at the corner of Province Road and Brook Road in Goshen. I don't think I'll approach, but I brought a picture from my front lawn of the west side of Mount Sunapee. Out of everybody who lives in Goshen, I have the most dramatic view of the proposed expansion of the mountain. Deeply impacted in a positive manner. I strongly support the expansion and what you're doing at Dread. I'd like to see ski trails there in my lifetime. Been wanting it for many, many years. An interesting thing I found, this is before Dread. I have a little booklet. It's called the New Hampshire Troubadour. This was published in 1934 by the New Hampshire State Development Commission. There's an advertisement of New Hampshire, came out periodically, promoting New Hampshire, recreation in New Hampshire. And the most fascinating part of this one, it is the Christmas edition. The front page depicts a skier on a mountain in New Hampshire. The back page, a skier, mountain in New Hampshire. Inside the front cover, a skier in New Hampshire. Inside the rear cover, a skier. And this one's comical. It's a female. I don't think you would do this in any of your advertising today, but it says, "Here is a pretty girl," high up on the hills of New Hampshire. Pretty cool. State did that. The inside, 2 pages, centerfold. All girls again, with skis and snowshoes, with a Boston and Maine Railroad behind them. It was a Sunday edition, the Sunday's Boston and Maine Railroad ski, oh, I get red line. Boston and Maine Railroad was bringing skiers to New Hampshire. So before all of us were born, our forefathers were promoting growth of the ski industry in New Hampshire. And I commend you for promoting it and continuing. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Heidi Bartlett. I live in Newport, and I'm speaking for myself. And I am strongly opposed to the West Bowl expansion. Thank you.
I'm Julian Johnson. I'm speaking from the perspective of a lifelong Sunapee resident, owner of a 30-acre parcel in Goshen that totally surrounded by the proposed resort expansion, and as a representative of the Friends of Mount Sunapee. Further development of Mount Sunapee State Park as proposed, enhancing development of privately owned and adjacent properties, is morally, ethically, and legally wrong. Specifically, how can Dread even make a judgment when no plan is available, even for a relatively simple mountain coaster, whatever that is, or the more importantly, there is no long-term build-out plan for the West Fold, or any specific plan for any development. Current and complete environmental impact studies, economic analysis, traffic infrastructure costs all need to be publicly addressed. For example, the The unfragmented west slope of Mount Sunapee is forested and relatively stable, limiting erosion and slowing runoff. Deforestation, excavation, and constructions will greatly destabilize this very sensitive area. Also, the state has proven itself not capable of articulating a binding lease agreement. How can we expect a complicated transfer of properties, most already protected with public monies, some are not, over a sliding timetable without risking a financial debacle for the state? There is no guarantee expansion is financially viable. Why should the state be at risk? We are opposed to future resort expansions that run counter to the intents of those who worked and gave for over a century to create and protect Mount Sunapee State Park. We appreciate, cherish, and strive to protect all our heritage and natural resources. This is what New Hampshire should be about. We should not be for sale. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sheldon Benoyer, and I'm here to represent myself, and I'm from Greenfield, New Hampshire, and I'm strongly in favor of this balanced approach to the expansion of Mount Sunapee. I grew up in the ski industry with family who started a ski area, and we learned how to love skiing by day, but we were taken out into the mountains at night at the ski area to spend the night out in snow forts and learned how to really love the outdoors. I recently served on a board as a board of trustee member of a land conservation group, so a sensitivity to the environment is utmost importance to me. And I find one of the things that we looked at very hard as trustees of an organization, land conservation organization, was how to bring land to more people, how to bring the outdoor experience to more people. As the environment changes and as demographics change, it becomes more and more important to get people out there. And I think that this balanced proposal should be approved because it does just that. It keeps the natural environment by the creation of additional land area so that there's passive recreation, but also allows a mountain to expand and grow like it should. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Schissel. I'm a resident of Newport. And I would like to say that I too enjoy skiing on this mountain very much, and I have family that comes up from Massachusetts and over from New York that also ski here. I, however, am opposed to the proposal. I think the expansion that we have at the present time is enough. I can't say it more eloquently than Don Emery and Chris Kane about the degradation to what would happen to the rest of the land. I don't see any kind of public benefit for that. I also don't, I'm hearing that there's going to be a mountain coaster. I don't believe we need to put these things into the middle of our green space to make it an appealing attraction for people to come out and enjoy the outdoors. The outdoors is adequate enough as it is. We don't need any more games to be had and to destroy the environment around it. There are many of those in other areas. So again, I strongly oppose this, and thank you so much for letting me speak.
Hi, my name is Jim Leland. Speak for myself and my wife Shirley. As a resident of Goshen and as someone who has lived within bike riding distance of Mount Sunapee for most of his life, I would like to speak in opposition to the proposed expansion. I'm going to try to be uncharacteristically brief and just touch on a couple of key points of concern. The first broad area of concern for me is concern about environmental impact of the proposed expansion, and I'm sort of shocked and disturbed that we haven't had a more in-depth investigation of that and a more formal study of those issues up front before progressing to this point in the process. Some key related concerns of mine are the impact on the Summit hiking trail, which my family and I have long enjoyed. I'm concerned about the impact on, there's a lot of talk, and I don't know the technical distinctions between old growth per se and exemplary this and that, but I do know what it means to have ancient unspoiled forests, and I'm very concerned that we are talking about spoiling just that sort of forest. I'm also concerned about something I haven't heard anyone else raise, and that is the impact on water quality of Lake Sunapee as the mountain continues to expand. I believe we're already seeing some evidence that there may be a negative impact, and I think that should also be within the scope of an environmental impact study before there's any further expansion. On the question of public benefit, I think the point's been made several times, and it doesn't hurt to reinforce that it's a little bit disingenuous to talk about that there are no plans for development peripherally to the mountain when it seems pretty clear that it is standard operating procedure within the industry, and especially when we have very large development corporations involved, to do this peripheral development and use the resort itself really as just a magnet to be an anchor for property development, and that peripheral development tends to be designed to be economically self-contained, and so therefore the economic benefit to the surrounding area is likely to be much less than it has been painted. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hi, my name is Lisa Bazokin. I speak for myself. I'm from Wilmot, New Hampshire, and I am strongly opposed to the expansion of the Mount Sunapee State Park. I would like you to know that you cannot mitigate damages done to an exemplary forest. And I am here to say that I want to protect what's left of our state park for public use and save the use and stop the use of our state park for corporate profit. Thank you.
Hi, Dan Banks. I'm from Wilmot, and I represent myself, and I oppose the expansion of the ski area. I also oppose the elimination of the Summit Trail, and I oppose the addition of a mountain roller coaster. I believe that that's a conversion of the use of the state park. And I also don't believe that this is an economically viable plan, and I'm wondering who is financing it? And is DRED going to authorize collateral loans taken out against the Mount Sunapee State Park premises to allow this to go forward? That's a question.
The financing side of it is one of the reasons why it is relatively complex, and it has to go and try to get financing, and that's one of the reasons for the delay in the transfer, because it has to be proven financially, financed privately. So that is part of the process that the resort would have to go through.
Are you going to authorize the leaseholder to use the state park premises as collateral for loans for this project? That's the question.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But you're not going to answer it?
I just provided my response, and I appreciate the question, and it'll be very helpful for me as I continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Hal Kruger from Newbury, and speaking for myself. Throughout this whole process, I've been kind of thinking about two hands dealt, a good card game. And we'll call one hand that of the mountain, or for the mountain. For me, it includes a very thorough and fair review of the whole process. It includes a minimal build out and a minimal impact on the mountain. It serves the public good. It attracts tourist dollars. It's obvious economic benefits for both local, state, as well as individual people. It's a hand that includes proven environmental custodianship, proven energy awareness, excellent loyalty to the local, and excellent citizenship. The second hand, as near as I can tell, is based more on emotion, which I can understand when we're looking at this beautiful mountain. It's based on what ifs, which are not part of this process here. And it's about rumors that are about facts that are not even in the purvey of this committee and what it's doing. The time for permitting is the time that we'll get into many of those issues. So for me, the mountain holds the better hand. And the others, I think, should know when to fold. Thank you.
My name is Janet Kruger. I'm a resident of Newbury. I live right around the corner. I've been skiing since I was 5 years old. That's a long time. Love Mount Sunapee. I would like to thank the commissioner for his very well thought out plan. I think it addressed the concerns that have been expressed over the years when we've been discussing this whole issue. And quite frankly, I think this whole issue has been discussed ad nauseum. It's been studied ad nauseum, and I think the time to act is now, and so that we can all get on with our lives, and hopefully we can concentrate on more important issues, like maybe the drug problem in New Hampshire, or public financing of elections.
Hi there. Thank you so much for letting me speak, and thank you to DRED and the advisory committee for all the work that you've done. My name's Catherine Corkery. I'm from New Hampshire Sierra Club. We represent 10,000 members and supporters in the state. And the Sierra Club actually recognized nationally Mount Sunapee as a national treasure. And it is a special place in the heart of every Sierran. And we recognize the historical importance of the state park. Just like Yosemite, it is a place that holds special meaning to everyone who comes here. And we will be submitting written comments. And those comments will be centered around the protection of the summit trail and making sure that there's year-long public access. That is a high importance for hikers. We would like the exemplary natural community to be prioritized in a state where the entirety of the forest was mowed down just over 100, 200 years ago. It's important to have the diversity that is on the state park and recognizing its rarity. And we also have concerns about the 10-year timeline for the land transfer that is very unusual, and we have some real concerns about that. But thank you so much for taking my comments, and we'll be submitting written comments in the future. I'm sorry. We are opposed to the plan as proposed at this time.
Frank Weldon, New London, representing myself. I've been skiing here since the 80s, so I've gone through the transition. My experience has been, and my family's, and now we're down to 3 generations like so many others. And to start off, I support the expansion. We've noticed the tremendous improvements. I think if you talk to the people at the ski school, the number of lessons and employees has gone up significantly since the mountain was put under the lease. The Alpine program, and I'm also a member of NESA, New Hampshire Handicap Sports Association. We host veterans, and a lot of you probably know about our handicap program. We love the experience now. We think these people have been very good stewards, and this expansion will just improve the attractiveness of this mountain and provide more and spread people out more over the mountain on the weekends. And I feel that you've done a balanced job in your initial draft, and I think we should move forward.
Hello, and thank you for holding this hearing. It's really important for the public to be able to express their concerns. And this has been a long process, and many people have spent many hours and months doing personal research into every aspect of this problem. I call it a problem. I oppose the draft decision made by DRED to approve the West Bowl expansion as well as the Mountain Coaster. This decision is in conflict with the public interest and the mission of the state park system in the state of New Hampshire. It ignores the findings of the New Hampshire Natural Heritage Bureau by allowing construction of a ski lift in an area of the exemplary forest natural community system. It eliminates the current public use of the park. We've been talking a lot about trails, ski trails. Well, there are other trails on this mountain, and people use them. It in fact negates the functionality of the Summit Hiking Trail, which currently allows park visitors to have access to the forest and mountainside without interruption by ski infrastructure. The changes to Mount Sunapee resulting from this proposal are permanent and will alter the environment of the western side of the mountain forever. Blasting holes into the granite where the exemplary forest is now located to put in lift towers can never be reversed. The forest will be fragmented and its connection to the Pillsbury-Sunapee Highlands severed. These forested areas are in large measure what define rural character, and as is stated in the Newbury Town Annual Report, the #1 reason why people visit this area of New Hampshire. By repurposing the western slope of the park exclusively for skiing, the expansion limits its accessibility to only those of the highest income levels. Only the top 14% of households' incomes will have access to the park. And if condos are built, that will shrink to 5%. This fundamentally contradicts the purpose and intent of public parks, which is to provide access to the general public.
Hi, my name is Sue Russell. I'm from Newbury, New Hampshire. The one thing I absolutely hate to do is speak in public. Just want to put that out there. But I feel this is so important, so I have to do it. Basically, what I'm looking at is, I wrote a few things down, 2 pages, that's it. What has happened to the common good of our common property? Because that's what the state park is, our common property, the people of New Hampshire. We all know that the management and protection of our commonly held park and surrounding commonly protected lands has been entrusted to this board and to this agency. When our common property owned by the people of New Hampshire was rented out, the state lost sight of its park mission. The common good was replaced by the out-of-state renters' wants and needs. Let us return our focus on managing our common property, our state park, for the majority of our people to enjoy. Let's stop our focus on only those few who can afford the fee-based expanded uses provided by the corporate renter, the leaseholder. Keep our parks for the common good for those who own it, the people of New Hampshire. I thank you very much, and I hope you can tell by this statement that I am opposed to this draft because it does not include the uses that the people of New Hampshire need. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ellen Winkler. I'm speaking for myself, and I'm a resident of Brook Road in Goshen, and I strongly oppose the expansion.
My name is Loa Winter, and I am a resident of Newbury, New Hampshire, and I am opposed to this expansion. Simply put, bigger is not better. Enough is enough. Let's keep what we have and take care of it and cherish it. We are so fortunate to be here with this mountain and this resource that we have. So I am very much opposed to this expansion.
A wise man speaks because he has something to say. A fool speaks because he wants to say something. You people judge. I was born in a live free or die state. I skied at Mount Sunapee in the 50s. I worked and skied in the 60s. I went back and skied in the 70s and 80s. Everything we do in this state, we protest. Seabrook, 2 reactors, $1 billion. Instead, it ends up 1 reactor for $8 billion. Wind farms, I know a little about them. Everybody protests those. Northern Pass, we don't want Northern Pass. We want to buy expensive electricity. We're already organizing against the Kinder Morgan pipeline. Is this all necessary? I read the newspaper, the Concord Monitor, the other day, and I heard that some people think the conservation land that the Muellers are giving to the state is worthless. They're wrong for a lot of reasons. First, although the land has a conservation easement on it for structures, the original owner retained the forestry and agricultural rights to the property. When the Muellers gave the land to the state, they will be giving away both the land and the rights to this land, including the timber rights to the state. This will protect the Summit Ridge line along the Sunapee-Pillsbury corridor forever. Second, it was Dredd that said they wanted these lands. Back in 2002, Commissioner George Bald, a very good guy, said in a letter that he wanted to expand the lands owned by the park along the summit of Mount Sunapee down the Sunapee-Pillsbury corridor. He required the Muellers to buy the property and give to Dredd. It seems to me that these 200 acres were valuable enough for the state wanted to own then. Now they'll be getting ownership of those conservation's land along with the timber rights. It's a good deal for the state and for the park. I hope you approve this. I will figure out a way to siphon the money out of the people's pockets when I come up here through work. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Doug Graham. I'm from Sunapee, and I'm speaking on behalf of just myself and in support of the draft decision. I've been a resident of Sunapee since 2000 and have been a ski patroller at the mountain here since 1993. And incidentally, all but the last year that was volunteer. At the risk of repeating what Commissioner Rose, some of what Commissioner Rose said at the beginning, he kind of stole my thunder, but I guess he's entitled to do that. He was talking about the public-private partnerships and the adjacent lands and so forth. And rather than repeat what he did say, I wanted to just make one point that I felt pretty strongly is the remaining parcel of private land that's adjacent to the lease and state park boundary. That whole area, if I'm not mistaken, that the Muellers bought, anybody could have bought that. That wasn't, as far as I know, it was not some private deal or anything like that. And it's not unlike the parcel of land that's right over here at the top of South Peak that's being developed right adjacent to the ski area. And people seem to forget about that. They're already advertising ski in and ski out, even though it hasn't been built yet. But again, Commissioner Rose made the points that I was going to make. I guess the last point I want to make is the approval process for this Master Development Plan and Environmental Management Plan. It's going to be, shortly it's going to be entering its second year. Let's get to a decision and move on, whichever way that decision takes us. I strongly support the draft decision presented by Commissioner Rose and urge the committee to adopt it. Thank you.
Hi, Dan O'Halloran. I live in Sutton, New Hampshire, and I strongly support the plan as proposed. I also represent just myself and the citizens group for Mount Sunapee's future. Commissioner Rose, you've done an excellent job. The amount of hours, time, and detail you guys have put forward as a team, running all the numbers and looking at every last little detail, I think is really just impressive and truly appreciated as a resident of the area and a local business person in the area. So for that, I thank you. I'll keep it really brief, but you know, this has been really interesting locally to see everyone come together, and I appreciate seeing everyone's feedback for and against the expansion. So With that, thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Gary Stansfield. I'm speaking for myself. I'm a resident of Goshen. I strongly oppose the ski area expansion. This plan runs counter to a concerted 100-year effort to protect and conserve a large connected mosaic of lands around Mount Sunapee. Resort development is not conservation. The exemplary forest community threatened under this plan is protected under New Hampshire state law. Any competent forest ecologist, such as those on your own NHB staff, will tell you that cutting a swath through this forest will jeopardize its continued existence. The test plots you speak of will only document the destruction of this rare ecosystem. It is in your power, Commissioner Rose, to uphold the New Hampshire Plant Protection Act and deny the expansion. Destruction is not stewardship. It is irresponsible to approve a project of this scope and scale without having thorough, up-to-date impact studies completed before the plan is approved. The MDP uses outdated and superficial studies to support their proposal. This is simply not acceptable. You tout this as an economic boost to our region, yet 17 years into the lease, the economy of our area is still described as stagnant. There are empty storefronts in Newbury and surrounding communities. Why? Because the vast majority of the employment created is part-time, seasonal, low-wage. Young people are leaving this area in droves because of this. Serving hot chocolate to tourists is not a career. The park currently balances alpine skiing with more traditional low-cost uses. This plan would monopolize much of the park for skiing. The popular four-season Summit hiking trail would be bisected half-dozen times by ski infrastructure. No reroute is possible that will fix this. This is not a balanced plan. Lastly, I extend an open invitation to lead any of you, including you, Commissioner Rose, and members of the press on a hike up the Summit Trail to see the 200-year-old trees while they still stand and see just what is at stake here in our public land. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Frank McConnell. I live in Newport, operate Bob Skinner Ski and Sport, and I'm one of the founders of the Citizens for Mount Sunapee's Future, and I'm speaking for myself. I wholeheartedly support this plan. This proposal is a balanced compromise that reflects the variety, interests, and desires of the people who live, work, recreate in this region. As a tourism-based business owner, I have heard the voices of thousands of visitors to this area over the years, and what I've heard over and over again is that people want new trails, new lifts, and even more parking. There is overwhelming support for this proposal in this region. Business owners understand the positive economic impact this expansion would have on their own operations. The fact that select boards in 5 towns of this region have endorsed the expansion should speak some volumes here. But this doesn't mean supporters don't care about the natural landscape. We do care about conservation and protecting the mountain. And this proposal strikes the right balance between the two sides. This plan requires the leaseholder to pay for the expansion and then turn the land over to the state to be permanently protected. This plan also requires the leaseholder to sign over more than 400 acres of land to the state for protection. Make no mistake, this land still can be used for logging and agricultural use per the conservation easement, but now the acreage could be forever protected. Years ago, Tim and Diane promised all to us about what they would do in Mount Sunapee and in the manner that they would do it, and they have kept their promise. We should not forget how far things have come since Mount Sunapee was nearly shut down in 1998 because state funds dried up. Today it is a vibrant and strong. This is a remarkable testament to the good work done by the stewards of this resort. They deserve our support. Let's please move this plan forward. Thank you.
My name is Hess Gates. My wife and I live in Sunapee. I'm representing our whole family. There are many reasons our family supports this draft decision. Too many for just 2 minutes. 3 important reasons I'd like to highlight are, number 1, jobs. Lake Sunapee, it's beautiful. It supports a ton of warm weather jobs. However, when Mom and Dad's warm weather employment winds down, the Mount Sunapee jobs are family savers. They heat houses, put food on the table during the winter months. The additional $1 million of jobs and the resultant ripple effect will help our friends and neighbors live here year-round. Number 2, responsible environmental stewards and good neighbors. Our region has 17 years of tested and proven relationship with the Muller family. They have consistently demonstrated what it means to be good stewards of the mountain and good neighbors. They donate to local causes, provide scholarships to our young residents, support our disabled veterans and physically challenged. They are part of the fabric of our region. Number 3, 2 New Hampshire ski areas for the price of none. Mount Sunapee lease payments historically have exceeded $500,000 a year. This money goes directly to Cannon Mountain to fund Cannon capital improvements. A competitive Mount Sunapee means Cannon improvements can continue without any funding from New Hampshire taxpayers. Clearly a win-win for both the state and, more importantly, its taxpayers. It's important to recognize Commissioner Rose and his team for the tremendous effort they put into this draft. It clearly shows all the public's input was heard. This draft decision is a good and balanced compromise. I urge the Executive Council and the Governor to approve this expansion plan for the benefit of our region, all of New Hampshire. Thank you.
Commissioner Rose, my name is Tim Bishoyev. I grew up skiing at Mount Sunapee State Park, and I've lived in Sunapee for the past 35 years. I cannot support this development plan for Mount Sunapee. I suggest your department and the governor look at the true visionaries that created our state and federal park system, that protected land, wildlife, and created great enjoyment for the visitors. This expansion plan of more trails, theme park ride, and building development is not environmentally friendly. It is not a long-term economic driver. Mount Sunapee Resort will be like all other resorts funded by investment trusts and others, creating more low-paying jobs while maximizing profits for their investors. I do feel we have an opportunity here, though. If we bring the entrepreneurial spirit and wisdom of our generation together with the 21st century technology we already have, and the endless creativity and energy of our youth, a green and fully sustainable ecotourism model can be created. New Hampshire would be a leader, not following the status quo. I appreciate the chance.
I'm Lydia Hawks. I'm from Goshen, New Hampshire. I strongly oppose the Mount Sunapee Resort West Bowl expansion and the Mountain Coaster proposals. The leaseholders of Mount Sunapee Resort have not completed projects from previous master development plans. As evidenced by current eroding ski infrastructure, just one example of this is back in December of 2007, when a North Peak chair failed and a teenager was thrown off the lift, breaking his arm. This was 8 years ago. This chair was supposed to be replaced, but it is still in service, and pretty rickety at that. The commissioner said that there is no old growth in this area of the proposed expansion, but could he please define old growth when there are trees that are documented to be over 300 years old and land that has not been touched by any machinery? The commissioner recommends to institute a study to see how the ski resort would impact this pristine area after the expansion takes place. This is absurd. If the state is concerned with what the ski industry is doing to our forests, then why haven't these studies already been instituted? While the current trails at Mount Sunapee Resort are getting wider and wider by the year because of dying trees and blowdown from storm damage, the trees in the west flank of this mountain are still standing and have weathered many storms and hurricanes for hundreds of years. Sunapee State Park is more than a ski mountain. It's a four-season hiking and recreation mountain that gives the public an immense and diverse experience all year round. The expansion plan would cut through and delete the current summer hiking trail that would eliminate winter hiking and a great and varied wildlife habitat. This is our state park. We should be protecting it, not exploiting it for profit. This lease in 1998 that has been since 1998 has not improved the regional economy. 4 trails, a lift, a parking lot, and a lodge will not make a difference. This expansion needs to stop. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioner Rose, Mr. Nate Miller, Mount Sunapee Advisory Committee members. My name is Jennifer Shea. I'm a full-time resident of Sunapee. I speak for myself. I grew up here. I work in Sullivan County. I want to be very clear. I vehemently oppose the expansion. I want to thank you for holding this meeting, but I can't help but feel we're all here going through the motions to placate those of us that oppose the expansion. I truly hope I'm wrong, but only time will tell. Commissioner Rose, like so many others, I'm devastated by your current draft opinion. Your draft fails in so many ways. First, the land being offered to mitigate the damage by this expansion is already largely under conservation easement. Your draft opinion neglects to cite this easement. Whether intentional or not, it gives a false sense of the actual size and scope of this supposed donation. Your plan endorses the construction of a mountain coaster. This Disney-style roller coaster is not some benign, removable alpine slide. No, this is a permanent all-season elevated roller coaster. I urge everyone in the audience tonight to search YouTube in the aptly named Okemo Timber Ripper to get an idea to know what the ride that the commissioner would like to see come to Sunapee really looks like. Also, exceedingly disappointing is that the expansion is being touted as an economic boom for our community. Living and working in Sullivan County, I personally understand how badly we need economic growth, but this isn't it. Supporters claim Mount Sunapee is the economic engine of our community, but I urge you to look up and down Route 103 and count how many closed or closing businesses you see. If the resort is so powerful, why have so many businesses that sit directly in its shadow closed since the management took over? Lastly, I will say that sadly you must think us fools to pretend the resort would even contemplate a hefty price tag of expansion of trails and lifts without the pot of gold of condominiums at the end of the rainbow. It's absurd. But only more foolish is the 20-foot buffer zone that you propose to guard against the inevitable ticky-tacky condos that will be built. As our public official, you should be enforcing accountability and transparency for corporations using our public land to drive profit. You should be leading the charge to demand full accounting of potential scale and scope of this project. You have the power, and if and when condominiums come to Goshen, it will be on your watch.
My name is Josh Bishoyev. I grew up in Sunapee, but now live in Claremont. I strongly oppose the expansion plan, and I think it is bad economic development. I'd like to see our state grow as a great place to live in, a place that attracts young people, families, entrepreneurs, innovators to live here, not to visit and leave. A great place to live in requires opportunities for meaningful jobs in innovative industries, affordable recreation as well as affordable living, and a strong sense of community and authentic New Hampshire experiences that foster regional pride. The expansion does not address any of these needs and will in fact have a regressive effect on the initiatives and strategies that our legislators, educators, and large businesses are putting in play to try to attract and retain young people in this state and see as a place of opportunity for growing and developing. For those reasons, it is not the type of economic development that will move our state's economy forward, and I strongly oppose it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Holly Flanders, and I'm from Newberry, but I live in Park City, Utah. I'm a 2-time Olympian, a 3-time World Cup downhill winner, and a 2-time national downhill champion. I learned those basic skiing skills right here at this mountain. I'm against the expansion. I'm sorry. When I retired from ski racing, I was offered a great position as director of skiing at Park City ski area in Utah, and I held that position for 8 years. I spent 28 years there and watched the growth of a quaint, magical ski town to become to where it is today, an overcrowded, congested, polluted, sprawling suburb of Salt Lake City and a haven for second homeowners. The locals are asking themselves, what have we done by allowing the growth and inviting the world there? One day in December, it took 3 hours to drive the 6 miles of the 4-lane highway from the ski areas to the interstate highway. It's turning into a parking lot there. Many of the locals are questioning the quality of life there now and whether they want to live there. This is an amazing gem and a beautiful place. The question is, what do we want to have here? It would be exciting to have more ski trails, but is it worth cutting down old growth forests and jeopardizing endangered plants? Not to mention more traffic on the country roads. And who will profit? Does it bring lasting and sustainable benefits to the economy? Does it bring young people who want to live here and earn a living wage? Does it raise the quality of life here for many or for just a few? I ask you to consider the concept of preserving the status quo and continuing to support making Mount Sunapee the best ski area it can be. It's fabulous. They are doing a wonderful job running this place. But consider bringing in things that would add vibrancy and economic benefit and allow people to earn a living wage, but not jeopardize the uniqueness of this beautiful place. Thank you.
Hello. I have a question first. Can I ask that first before my 2 minutes? I was just curious, does the state still maintain the hiking trails on Mount Sunapee?
So we work with various friends groups and hiking groups that help us maintain those trails.
Okay, I hiked the Summit Trail recently, and it needs some work. It's been neglected. Okay, my name is Susan Parmenter. I'm a resident of Sunapee, New Hampshire. I've been there since 1983. I skied at Mount Sunapee. I worked at Mount Sunapee. My kids all skied there. My husband skied there since he was 8. We love Mount Sunapee. But I strongly oppose the current West Bowl expansion. I believe it is bad economic development for our state. Also, according to state law, RSA 216A1, the first priority of the state park system is to, I quote, protect and preserve unusual scenic, scientific, historical, recreational, and natural areas in the state. In my opinion, that describes our Mount Sunapee State Park 100%. Therefore, I believe the West Bowl expansion proposal is in direct violation of that state law. In addition, I urge you and Governor Hassan to think carefully about the historical legacy of intelligent stewardship and land preservation in which you are about to interfere. The trees and forests now in the direct path of expansion are those which were once protected from deforestation on Mount Sunapee in the 1900s. They also survived the hurricane of 1938, not to mention the test of time. Until now, 2015, you are about to sacrifice that legacy of stewardship, cutting down those trees all for the sake of a quad chairlift and a few ski trails and a mountain roller coaster? A mountain roller coaster. That doesn't belong here. This is not balanced, it is a sellout. I am trying to be the voice of that legacy because those people who created it are now gone. Someone has to stand up for it. I want to ask you, what legacy will you and Governor Hassan leave behind? One of preservation and stewardship? Or are you going to be opening the doors up for environmental demise in a time of climate change? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Lichty. I live in Leominster, and I'm speaking for myself. I am opposed to the resort expansion. I feel it is a bad economic development plan. When I was a child, my enlisted Air Force father and stay-at-home mom were always looking for cheap, enjoyable outings for themselves and their 4 children. Never were we able to ski, but we did enjoy what New Hampshire state parks had to offer. which was free or cheap, camping, picnicking, swimming, and hiking. My siblings and I found great joy in exploring the forests and free activities that we found at New Hampshire State Parks. Families of today, at least if they live in this area, can no longer afford to experience what Mount Sunapee has to offer. The recreation here is geared to the rich out-of-staters who make a decent living wage. They are the ones clogging up your ski trails and complaining that there aren't enough trails. They don't want to drive even farther north or west to experience the larger ski areas. Commissioner Rose, the wording in your draft approval, retain the right to use the property to meet local density requirements and other permitting and/or mitigation requirements, clearly paves the way for condominiums and other ski resort amenities on the resort owner's private land in Goshen. The local land use boards in our small communities do not have the capacity to withstand the power of a large corporate entity, well experienced in bending local regulations to suit their needs. Make no mistake, if this plan is approved, Goshen and other small rural communities like mine will be negatively affected by resort sprawl. This development will keep the tourist dollars in corporate hands while saddling our communities with increased costs for public safety and transportation. And the fact that you want to place a mountain coaster here is absurd. If that goes through, I hope that you will place it over a ski trail. To save the pristine forest, Mount Sunapee State Park is not an amusement park and needs to be maintained as the beautiful, historic, forested mountain that Herbert Welsh intended it to be.
Good evening. I am John Werkler of Goshen. I am representing myself, and I am strongly opposed to Commissioner Rose's draft approval of April 16. I will speak of just two of the reasons that I am in opposition. First, as a lifetime resident of this area, Mount Sunapee State Park was part of the pleasurable outdoor environment of my youth. What I especially remember of that earlier park, and I did learn to ski here and valued that experience, but what I especially remember are family-friendly picnic facilities, band concerts, and such things that are no longer currently available. There was no charge for any of them at that time. And I'm struck by how different Mount Sunapee State Park of today is, if there is such a thing. I wonder sometimes in relation to what we currently have. And I don't doubt what Mount Sunapee Resort meets a need and does provide a great deal of beneficial skiing experiences for anyone who wants to partake of them. But I do think that we've had something that should be included in master development plans. I don't see any such planning for the type of things that I spoke of. My second concern is that the Commissioner's decision is premature. For 15 years now, I was an elected member of Goshen's Planning Board. During most of that time, we were aware that a small community might be in crosshairs of a large commercial real estate development. And we believe that the state, with its superior resources, would conduct relevant impact studies that would provide an initial screening that would shield us from the worst impacts of such a development. Commissioner Rose's decision at this point undermines that hope. And I think in conclusion that the current decision was rendered in a premature manner and it doesn't reflect wise public policy. Thank you very much.
Yes, good evening. My name is Virginia Schundler. I'm a resident of Goshen, representing myself, and I'm strongly opposed to the West Bowl expansion. Most issues have been covered, but I will reiterate in a rather general way. Local government is often misled by promises of short-term profits, completely neglecting the long-term permanent loss of the essence of the place that makes an area or a town so attractive to begin with. In Goshen's West Bowl, with the projected expansion, We will lose older forests, essential bear and deer habitat, hiking trails, the special character of what is still a quiet, unspoiled environment. With the possible future development of 250 condos, there will be a rise in real estate taxes that most residents will not be able to afford, as well as enormous costs for any supporting infrastructure. It would be naive if one was to believe that the new projected ski trails, chairlifts, night lighting, the West Bowl expansion, or for any reason other than to attract condo development, enhancing profit for corporate shareholders at CNL. One must wonder presently why the Real Estate Investment Trust, CNL, is divesting itself of all of its ski resorts. It's already gotten rid of senior housing, it's getting rid of golf courses, but is it that these properties have realized their full profit potential? I don't know, maybe someone could answer that question. Lastly, the greater part of the expansion will be on state land, enabling private gain from public land, which is not right. So thank you for your time, and good luck making a decision.
Hi, excuse me. My name is Maura Gorman, and I live in New London, and I've been working with the Citizens for Mount Sunapee's Future since last September. I'm really committed to increasing and improving what has happened in Mount Sunapee in the last 17 years. As I've sat here tonight, because I think there's only a handful of us left as opposed to who was here before, I'm really struck because I sat in Sunapee High School's gym in 1998, and a lot of the things that are being raised, not the specifics, but the general overriding sympathy and concerns is basic to being opposed to the fact that the state ever leased this property. But that's a fact, it happened. And I think this this plan is the next step, and it helps develop balance between conservation and the economic impact of the operation of Mount Sunapee. And I think it's unusual in this day and age as well that there's some public and private cooperation going on here, because we're not seeing that a whole lot in this country and in government right now. And I think that DRED has done an incredible job with the draft of this proposal. And I think that the mountain's operators have agreed to concessions and negotiations to make this all happen. So I'm very much in favor of this. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Keith Kristen. I'm speaking for myself. I live in Sunapee. I love to ski, but I oppose the expansion of the West Bowl. With a declining number of annual skier visits over the last 6 years, this expansion at the expense of the park's natural resources is not justified. And I have some questions for DRED to consider, not to be answered now. Has DRED considered what the end game is for the park under the current leasing? Has that been spelled out anywhere? What do DRED and the public want the park to look like at the end of the lease? Developed to its maximum, which seems to be the trend, or left to its natural beauty for future generations? Thank you.
My name is Gunter Hubert. I live in Newport, New Hampshire, and am representing myself. Commissioner Rose, I would just like to read 2 paragraphs from the letter that the Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Regional Planning Commission sent to your office last September. First paragraph, to make an informed decision, it is essential that the communities of Goshen and Newberry, the region and the state, have complete information about the scope, scale, and impacts of the proposed West Bowl expansion, both on public and private land, including, but not limited to, trails, lifts, facilities, parking, utilities, infrastructure, and any associated residential or commercial real estate development. Next paragraph. If the operator has no plans for real estate development in the West Bowl, Now and in the future, this should be explicitly stated in the master development plan. Otherwise, the scope, scale, location, timeline, and impacts of real estate development at the West Bowl should be identified and detailed in the master development plan. I have some comments also regarding the report that RKG did for Mount Sunapee Resort, but I will mail most of those comments to your office. But one that brought my attention was an increase in skiing resulted in an increase of room and meals tax of almost over 80%. I find that a hard number to comprehend, just those two numbers. But what was really interesting also, on the RKG website, they have a little computer application that has New Hampshire as its primary geography, and you can plug in impacts of development in different communities. And I did that with the town of Goshen, identifying the land roughly around the park that might be utilized for these condominiums, and the net gain to Goshen was in excess of $300,000 in the red. That's a negative. So on top of the litigation in the past that has cost the state probably between $300,000 and $500,000, I don't see a net gain or any public benefit. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. My name is Robert Stewart. I'm a resident of Newbury, New Hampshire, and I am in opposition to this proposal. I first have a question, if I may. You referenced earlier to the summary and response you had December of 2014, and in that it discusses the Okemo request for proposal for Mount Sunapee, the original request for proposal, which I believe would follow through with what was entailed in that. And this is actually something that you wrote as a response, that they stated that, quote, "We understand that through a thorough environmental and land capability analysis will need to be conducted prior to proposing expanded recreation improvements, and we anticipate working closely with the state in determining the scope of such expansion and delineating key resource protection areas." Has that been done?
I'm sorry, I think I understood what you were asking about, and the proposal will all have to have all of the updates and go through the local permitting and the state permitting process, which would include all of those elements that you just referenced.
It states will need to be conducted prior to proposing expansion recreation. So I understand your response. My question is, prior to. There's a proposal on the table. Was there one done prior to?
So, I'm sorry, so if you want to speak to the draft proposal, please, by all means.
Okay, I was speaking to your reference summary response. I have concerns with regard to all the impacts that will result if the expansion proceeds. However, I feel most qualified to speak on the environmental impacts. I have a degree in earth sciences and worked in the field of environmental science since 1986. I've acquired the knowledge to realize how the development of this magnitude will adversely affect our most treasured resource, the undeveloped natural spaces that make our state so special. In review of the summary and written response by DRED, dated 12/14, the responses generated in this document make it clear that the review of environmental issues are lacking substance due to the existence of a complete and comprehensive environmental impact statement, or at the very least, a comprehensive environmental analysis. Also in that summary response, potential impacts to the watershed, it references a hydrologic study of potential impacts of snowmaking and refers a number of times to potential impacts of the proposed trails. Although this is an important part of the equation in determining the potential. Already? I had a question. Did I lose time there?
I paused for your question, and you've been
Thank you.
at 4 to 5 minutes.
Thank you.
My name is Alan. Where are we? My name is Alan Schulman. I live in New London. I'm speaking for myself. I'm opposed to this expansion proposal, even as amended. Okay, so here we have Mount Sunapee State Park, pristine forest, and that's the before. Let's take a look at the after. We're going to make a ski resort. So here are the trails, and here's a ski lift, and there's a lodge down here. I understand the hot dogs are pretty good. And there's parking down at the bottom there, lots of parking. And some of you may say, hey, there's only a third of the woods cut down. We still have 93 acres left of forest. You might think that, but you'd be wrong. And you'd be wrong because when you cut up a forest like this, what you essentially do is create what's called forest fragmentation. Look it up on the net, all of you. You'll find a very good scientific description of it. So what happens is that what's real forest here is the dark green, okay? That's not 150 acres that you start with. It's not 93 acres. It's 22 acres. It's scattered in islands that don't talk the same language anymore. Look at this one. This is a third of an acre, a half an acre. We got some 4s here. Hold your hats on this one. This is the biggie. 7 acres here out of 150. You can't have a forest where you have human development. The gray areas here define a 200-foot zone that separates human development from where forest is possible. So all of this area indicates an area where forest is no longer possible. This destruction is called forest fragmentation. Please look it up. It's well known, it's negative, it's permanent. I don't want to trade a thriving forest community for a mortally damaged one. I'm opposed to this proposal. I hope you will be.
Hello, I'm Audrey Sylvester. I live in Bradford. I oppose the current plan as amended. As an earlier speaker said, spoke of the adverse effects of forest fragmentation. In my plain words, wounding the forest. What are those effects? A wounded forest is subject to invasive species of plants, which then provide less food for indigenous species of animals. A wounded forest is more prone to pests and disease. A wounded forest restricts normal animal breeding and leads to animal population decline. A fragmented, wounded forest loses its ability to provide the right amount of shade, temperature, wind, and moisture necessary for forest survival. Trees, flowers, ferns, lichen are all adversely affected. So are the animals that depend on them. A circular fragmented forest parcel of 14 acres has only 1 acre at its center that has suitable conditions for animals and plants. A wounded fragmented forest is economically non-viable. It becomes impossible to put proper forestry management into practice in such a degraded forest. While the effects of this fragmentation may not all be immediately apparent, they lead to the deterioration and demise of the original forest and its ability to support plant life. New Hampshire law states the first priority of the park system is to protect and preserve unusual scenic, scientific, historical, recreational, and natural areas of the state. RSA 217-A:7, Native Plant and Protection Act, to the extent possible, actions funded or carried out by state agencies shall not jeopardize the continued existence of any protected plant species or exemplary natural community. Protect our Mount Sunapee.
Good evening. My name is Emily Stewart. I've lived in Newbury, New Hampshire for 20 years. I've been a New Hampshire resident my entire life. Representing myself, I have 3 points to make. Actually, I have a whole lot, but I'll stick to 3. I strongly oppose the expansion. Number 1, I believe this is bad economic development. If people need an example, drive to Ludlow and ask the average person if they can afford to live there anymore. Number 2 is I believe the environmental impact and lack of current environmental studies are unacceptable. And number 3, mitigation is not a reasonable answer to right or wrong. You're still robbing Peter to pay Paul.
My name is Linda Dennis, a founding member of Friends of Mount Sunapee, a grassroots organization that seeks to preserve and protect Mount Sunapee State Park for its essential public values and preserve the region's quality of life, clean water, and open spaces. We strongly oppose the current plan for resort expansion. First, we believe resort expansion is not the engine that will move our economy forward. There is nothing in this plan that offers innovative or sustainable strategies from an economic standpoint. After 17 years of private management of the ski area, we are saddled with a stagnant and declining job market. Looking forward, we must make good decisions. This expansion is not good economic development and preservation of our national environment. Secondly, a resort expansion with a resulting development will further diminish the natural heritage, scenic beauty, and wild character of Mount Sunapee State Park. It will cut through and diminish a remarkable and rare forest, and the mitigation proposed does not lessen the harmful impacts. We believe state officials should uphold New Hampshire law that expressly protects this forest. Thirdly, this plan fails to describe the scale and scope of the project beyond a 5-year window and fails to provide current and complete impact statements. The resort's environmental assessments are 11 years old. Good planning must be forward-thinking and be based on complete information and solid science. Lastly, and most importantly, we believe that using public conservation land to facilitate private real estate development next to a state park violates public values, and it sets a dangerous precedent for public lands across New Hampshire. Although the resort declines to discuss its long-term build-out plans, the language in your draft decision speaks to the operator's interests to permit, mitigate, and meet density requirements. The state essentially will enable private development on and around the mountain on land that abuts the park. For these and other reasons, we see no compelling reason for the resort expansion and find the plan unacceptable. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Charlie Hirschberg. I'm a resident of Sunapee. I've lived in this area pretty much all my life, skied here late 50s, 60s, and I've been skiing the mountain ever since. I've been an instructor at the mountain for about 23 years, and I do support the development of the West Bowl expansion. I do feel that Mount Sunapee does have an economic influence in the area. There's a direct influence, but I think a greater is a more indirect influence of the economics of the area. It's a secondary impact or secondary economic benefit. One of the things I do want to commend Commissioner Rose on his approach to narrow trails, narrow impact. I think that is more conducive to the mountain environment. It creates much less of an impact. It doesn't segregate the forest to the extent that we're hearing here. And I think it can be effectively done. I do feel that environmental assessment is an important part of this approach, and it is a necessary piece in this whole process. The expansion as proposed does ultimately add more to the state park, and that's a benefit. That's a benefit for generations to come. It really does preserve a greater area, and the one thing is that everybody here as a citizen, has a right to use this park. That's not taken away from you. Hiking, particularly with low-impact type trail development, can coexist, and the trails can coexist, and the ski area development can coexist with other uses on the mountain. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Jerry Gold. I'm a resident of New London, and I'm a member and a volunteer with the Sunapee Ragged Kearsarge Greenway Coalition. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization that since 1993 has tried to develop hiking trails throughout the 10, what for our purposes, the 10-town region covering the mountains that are in the name of the organization. For many years, I've helped maintain the Summit Trail, and I can tell you that all trails on Mount Sunapee are maintained only by volunteers, and we have long been lacking in volunteers, and the continued use of those trails makes it likely that volunteers will be inadequate to properly maintain the trails. I'm here also neither pro nor con. I'm probably the first person to say that, but I'm here to talk about the trails. As trail master for the SRK Greenway, I've received emails recently asking if the Summit Trail will even continue to exist, and asking if the Greenway, an all-volunteer organization, has a position on the MDP or the Commissioner's draft recommendations. The Greenway Board includes people who are both for and against. Our membership includes people who are for and against. Therefore, we have not taken any position on either the MDP or your recommendations. However, we are very concerned about trails and the continuity of trails on the mountain and the continuity of the Greenway. So I have 3 questions which I hope you could possibly even answer tonight that will reassure New Hampshire hikers and visitors from outside. Is the Summit Trail from base to summit to be part of the DREAD recommendation and the MSR's eventual final plan? Question 2, will that trail be designed to continue 4-season winter snowshoe hiking? Very important, because the Monadnock-Sunapee Greenway ends at the top of Mount Sunapee. They want to find their way down to the parking lot. Will the New Hampshire parks develop a memorandum of understanding that sets trail maintenance responsibilities for the Summit Trail from Base Lodge to Summit Lodge? There's no such memorandum right now. With the leaseholder, Mount Sunapee Resort, primarily responsible for maintenance of that trail to Appalachian Trail Conference standards. And that's particularly important because of the New Hampshire 2014 court decision that brought the Summit Trail entirely within the leasehold area.
First, thank you for what you do and the volunteering of the maintenance of the trails. And I thank you for pointing out and bringing your questions forward, and it is our intention to make sure that we address those trails, and we'll make sure that we do it in a more explicit fashion in the final decision. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Mary Davidson. I live in Lebanon, New Hampshire. I've been a New Hampshire resident for 67 years. I learned how to ski at Mount Sunapee in the 50s. I have past Olympian skiers in my family and some future ones. And I know that when they leave the state of New Hampshire and ski in the big resorts, when they come home, they go, wow, we are so lucky to live where we live and be able to ski at our mountains. I'm greatly saddened by the state of New Hampshire and the dealings with leasing out this mountain. And if in the future they intend to lease out any other of our state land. I think as a resident and a lifetime member of this community that we should not give up our lands to other people for their own growth. And I think we need to look at stewarding our own public lands and taking care of them. And I know that our state raises some really intelligent young people who want to come back to our state and could manage these ski areas and do it in a sustainable way and a healthy way. So I'm hoping that some of them, even sitting here tonight, could ask the state, or the state would ask them to take on some of this, and instead of leasing it out to people in Florida or Utah or wherever else. So thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Susan Payton. I'm from Ackworth, New Hampshire. And I am a skier, I'm a hiker, and generally I love the outdoors. And I support the West Bowl expansion. I have kind of a pet peeve when it comes to parks, whether they be local, state, or federal lands. I've hiked all over this country, and the one thing that I've seen is most of our parks are not used. The usage of our parks is primarily not used beyond their formal viewing stations or their concession stands. People just don't go into the parks. They don't use them. They drive by them. They drive by the roads. They see Old Faithful, but they don't go into the woods. And we need to get more people using our parks. We should be doing everything we can to encourage more and more use of our parks. It's a good thing to have more and more people enjoy skiing and riding and hiking the trails in Mount Sunapee and in every park. When ski tourists are traveling north along I-91 or I-93 to head to a ski resort, they face a decision of whether to head east from I-91 or west from I-93 to ski at Mount Sunapee or choose another resort. Competition for skiers and boarders is fierce. Many ski areas are planning or already have expanded to appeal to more skiers. Some ski areas have not survived the competition, namely Ascutney Mountain in nearby Vermont. The Muellers have made Mount Sunapee into a great family ski area, but it just isn't enough to keep up with the competition from Vermont and the White Mountain ski resorts. It's imperative that Mount Sunapee expands and improves just to stay even with the competition. The economic value to the local economy of a future with an expanded Mount Sunapee could possibly be overstated, but the economic disaster of a closed Mount Sunapee cannot be overstated.
Good evening. I would like to thank all of you who are possibly up past your bedtime. My name is Kathleen Schulman. I live in New London. I am a lifetime New Hampshire resident. I've taught elementary school, and I think basically this comes down to one question. What is the public trust? What are we obligated to pass on to the next generation? How do we guard against the machine of profit that wants to come and wear us down and continue to push and push little by little until there is no quality of life that I grew up with, that others here grew up with. I do not think that skiing is the most wonderful use of the land. I think that the land has more value than just making it a ski resort. I don't think we need to be in competition. I think that we have something that is very valuable, that is pristine, and that our job, really, our task, is to protect that and to be good stewards. When we talk about the balance sometimes, particularly for those of you who have raised children, is to say, no, you cannot stay up all night. No, we are not going to balance the decision. No, I think that in this case, as citizens, we say no to the developers. We say no to mitigating the forest as it now is, and we say no to using public lands for private profit.
Good evening. My name is Diane Rochford. I live in Newport, New Hampshire, but I am reading a letter from Jeff Heath, who is a member who resides in Sunapee. He's not able to be here, so I'm reading excerpts from his letter. Dear Mr. Rose, I'm unable to attend this evening's hearing, however have asked that this statement be read on my behalf. Members of my family include direct descendants of Martin Perkins, one of the owners of land taken by eminent domain in 1948, in order to build a state park for the enjoyment of the people of New Hampshire. The legislative body at that time passed a law in order to make this happen. Since then, our family has experienced a loss of a long-standing water supply that abuts state-owned land due to groundwater contamination that was suspected to have come from the 3 unlined septic storage lagoons. These lagoons are outdated, designed when current knowledge did not take into consideration the long-term effects of groundwater safety and potential groundwater contamination. Since leasing, the tenants have come back to the state for permission to expand the spray fields in order to spray the septic sludge that is increased as they have been granted expansion privileges. Before the state should grant any further expansion of Mount Sunapee Resort, I believe that much more research needs to be put into the existing infrastructure of the park as it stands today. What specific information has been provided to you, Mr. Rose, with respect to the unlined lagoon septic storage facilities and how they can handle further effluent, as well as any situation such as a year of extreme weather, for example, snow or rain, without the potential of a breach or worst case, complete failure to hold back the sewage that is stored in the dated ponds. I suggest that anything be delayed, better yet, be denied. He is opposed. My name, Diane Rochford, I am opposed.
My name is Lionel Chute, and I live nearby in Washington, New Hampshire. My family's had land there and a home for 50 years in July. And I am speaking in opposition to this idea because it's in direct conflict with Governor Hassan's Earth Day proclamation of 2 weeks ago. It runs counter to the New Hampshire Climate Action Plan, which you can check out online. And it's also in direct violation of the New Hampshire Native Plant Protection Act, RSA 217A:3, which says specifically, actions carried out by state agencies shall not jeopardize the continued existence of any exemplary natural community. The New Hampshire Natural Heritage Bureau looked at 4 different areas, not just Polygon D. The reason it's called Polygon D is because there's a Polygon A, B, and C. All 4 of these polygons are going to be impacted directly. Polygon A includes trees that were cored at ages of today 314 years of age. That's 1699 that tree started out, and as well as a hardwood tree that is 202 years old right now. Polygon A will have the substantial tree removals as well as bisecting the polygon in half. Polygon B includes a 256-year-old red spruce. You don't see too many of those anymore, and substantial tree removals of that polygon. And Polygon C, which is also an exemplary natural community and part of an exemplary natural community system, is, quote, one of the only few known examples of high elevation spruce fir forest south of the White Mountains. Polygon D, which is the focus of a lot of the discussion, has mistakenly been said not to be old growth. But if you read the Natural Heritage Report, you will see that it is probably old growth because it consists of red spruce trees in the 22 to 30-inch diameter range. The stand is unevenly distributed. We're talking about stag-headed hardwood trees. 6 to 8 of the cord trees exceeded 170 years of age, and, quote, it appears to never have been logged. Polygon D is a documented exemplary natural community, which means that it's rare and one of the best examples in New Hampshire. There are 12 of these exemplary northern hardwood spruce fir forests left in the state, according to Natural Heritage. 2 are in Cheshire County, 2 are in Grafton County, 1 is in Carroll County, and 6 are in Coos County. There used to be 8, but 2 are now historical.
Let him finish.
This occurrence is the only documented example in either Merrimack or Sullivan counties. The proposed development jeopardizes the continued existence of the exemplary natural community and larger exemplary forest system by opening the closed canopy forest with multiple linear permanent openings, trails. The development cuts a swath through the center of Polygon D, along with 4 parallel swaths just above and below the stand. Primary threats to the natural community and system are definitely wind throw, sun scald, and the introduction of invasive species. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ken Dennis. I'm from the town of Newport, New Hampshire. I'm opposed to the West Bowl expansion. I'm opposed to the Mountainside roller coaster. And I'm also opposed to the letter of support that you received from the Board of Selectmen of Newport. There was no resident input towards that, and I would like that known. Thank you.
Commissioner Rose, I know this is a really long meeting, but I keep noticing while people are speaking, you're talking to the person next to you and shuffling through papers, and I would really appreciate it if you can pay attention and listen, because that is your job.
Hello, my name is Hillary Flanders. I grew up in Newberry, and I'm representing myself. I am opposed to this expansion. I think that I am a little bit unique standing up here tonight. I am a neighbor to Mount Sunapee. My family's land abuts the access road. My family's land was actually taken by eminent domain for the access road. And I think that my family would be very ashamed to see that it be used for corporate gain. I feel that with a decision like this, the risks need to be looked versus the rewards. And I feel that the rewards of this expansion are very limited, and they are geared towards certain people, not the community. I have been an employee at Mount Sunapee when I was in middle school and after I graduated college. The wages are the same. They're like $8 an hour. You can't live on them. As a youth, there's not much keeping me here. I would love there to be. The trails that you can hike in this area are something that would keep me here because they are beautiful, they're unique, and there's nothing like it. I travel a lot. I'm an avid hiker, snowboarder, and this area is unique, it's beautiful. The expansion areas that I've seen in other areas are disgusting. No offense. In my opinion, they're disgusting. They don't really... I'm sorry, my dad's back there, yay. They don't really foster a good local community is what I'm trying to say. I don't think that the views and the ideals coming forth with this expansion are good long-term goals for this community. So I am very much opposed to this expansion.
I'm Sam Shane from, I live in New London. I'm 15 years old, and I have been doing trail work on the SRKG for the past 3 years, I think. And when I first heard about how the Sunapee was going to be destroyed for capital gain or whatever, it was a shock because I believe New Hampshire is the most densely forested state in the country, and this destroying forest and everything, it's not going to do anything to get young people interested in coming to this park. Because frankly, all my peers and friends my age think that this what you're doing here by destroying the nature is basically the stupidest idea there is. And there are a lot of stupid ideas out there. And destroying nature is is basically the biggest one, because without the tree, without the forest, we wouldn't be alive. And frankly, this has been around a lot longer than any of us. Mountains have been around forever, and the idea that humans can just come along and destroy them is unethical and immoral for anyone to think that you can own anything outside. It's nature. We are a part of it. We have to survive in it in order to live. And just knocking down mountains in order to make money is not how we are going to survive the next 50 or 80 years with the effects of climate change and increasing poverty, and it's not going to work. So I'm opposed to it.
Good evening. My name is Dana Cero, and I represent myself. My family and I live in Boston, Massachusetts, but we own a house and 12 acres of land on Brook Road in Goshen, which directly abuts the West Bowl development area. We knew this development might or might not go through when we bought the house. In looking at houses throughout northern New England, we learned that other skiers are aggressively creating new experiences and expanding services and facilities in an attempt to lure more skiers. More locally, Ragged Mountain, Gunstock, Pat's Peak, Waterville, and Loon, and probably others, are all seeking business from the same skier market. Tourism is New Hampshire's #1 industry. Most of the objections that I've heard tonight against this draft proposal would apply to any ski area. In fact, would apply to the existing ski area. So in the recreation business, if you're not moving ahead and creating new experiences for your customers, you're falling behind. And we all know many local ski areas that have disappeared because they didn't keep up with the times. So I see the West Bowl draft proposal as written as an innovative way to balance the needs of recreation and conservation. And for that reason, I'm in favor of the development as outlined. Thank you.
Commissioner and committee, thank you for the opportunity to make these comments this evening. I would also like to thank the state representatives that took the time to be here with us this evening and hear this important dialogue. I'm here speaking on behalf of myself, and I am opposed to this proposal. And I want to be clear on what I'm opposed to. It is not that there is skiing in my community or a ski area. What I am opposed to specifically is a plan that jeopardizes the integrity of our local forest and the character of our local communities. I currently reside in Northampton, New Hampshire, but I grew up here. I grew up swimming in Lake Sunapee and Lake Gunnison, more commonly known as the Goshen Ocean. I know the trails on this mountain intimately, and I grew up skiing at the ski area. I'd like to focus a bit on the economics, as that seems to be what is primarily driving this proposal for the state. The draft proposal outlines what this will bring to the area, but it doesn't outline any of the costs. I think we need to see a clear outline of what costs will be incurred if this development goes forward. It also includes information that is from a company that was hired by the for-profit organization that stands to gain if this proposal goes forward. In my view, that is not the best source of information. Finally, it doesn't take into account, as has been commented on many times this night, the lack of economic growth in this area in more than the last decade, while the mountain has been here operated under a private organization. Additionally, I'm deeply concerned that this proposal is clearly expansion that will only fuel more expansion. And by that I mean specifically the condos that have been proposed repeatedly in Goshen. State of New Hampshire, I ask you not to pass the buck on this to a small town community. It's not right. I have seen my small town fight a large organization with deep pockets before, and I know firsthand the resources it takes. So please, this problem was created by the state. The local communities have been standing against it for the last more than a decade now. When I first started speaking out against this issue, I was in college. I'm now a 34-year-old woman. I have long since left my undergrad days behind me. So please don't pass the buck on this to Goshen. It is not fair. It's an unfair financial burden, and it's just a general burden on resources of the people in the town. Finally, I'd like to conclude by raising a couple of policy questions. And that is one, what is the intent of our state parks? What are we trying to do with this land? Is it to benefit the local community, or is it to line the pockets of private interests? The second is, how do we as a community get to the point where we say no to this and we do not have to continue to fight this battle, because we've been doing it on and on. And state, I ask you to help us, state of New Hampshire, in ending this.
Hi, my name is Nellie Dinger. I grew up in Goshen, but I now live in the town of Greenland. I would love to say ditto, that was my sister just talking. And I have to say, most of my points are very similar to hers. We grew up skiing at this mountain, and I have to be honest, I actually don't come here anymore because of the changes that I've seen to this mountain. It used to be this fabulous family-friendly place that I knew everyone here. I do not get that feeling when I come here now, which makes me sad. It's not a place that I will bring my family when I have one. I will make other choices. But that aside, that's not really the point here. The environmental impact that this expansion will have, I'm strongly opposed to. I don't think we have clear answers of what will actually happen. The watershed issue, I think, is a huge thing that has to be looked at. More water is going to be coming out of Lake Sunapee. What's going to happen with the extra runoff on the west side? That's never happened before. That area has never seen that type of runoff. What's going to be the impact? Also the forest fragmentation that people have spoken about. I think that is a huge issue that is not looked at enough, and it's caused a lot of problems in other areas of the state. And on top of the environmental issues, the economic issues that many people have spoken about that will fall on the town of Goshen, as my sister was just saying. The issues that Goshen has already dealt with in terms of fighting large corporations. The corporations win because small towns can't keep up, and that's what is going to happen when condos that will inevitably come in when we're trying to fight against those condos. And I just do not think it's fair to put that on the citizens of Goshen. All right, that's about all. Thank you.
My name is Jim Carrick. I am a resident of the town of Goshen. I live on Route 31, which is one of the 3 state roads in the town. Brook Road being the other one, and Route 10. Brook Road by far is in the worst condition of any of the roads, and I request of you to ride that road both day and night and see what condition that road is in. The state has not, in their 10-year plan, considered that in any way for any kinds of improvements, which would, excuse me, that'll reflect on cost involvement with the town of Goshen, not only for policing of accidents that occur on that road, but the rescue squads that are involved in having to go out there. We have only 19 firemen in the town. Only 3 are EMTs. So we have no real first aid response that we can fully devote to this kind of issue. The fact that there would be an expansion of a parking garage there or a parking lot of some 300 cars probably represents somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 people every day there at the height of that. That would require almost the same type of policing that the 850 residents of the town of Goshen are currently with, and we have 1 policeman for that. That would require us to hire another policeman, hire another car, outfit that car. There's our $90,000 in revenues accepted into the town. Mr. Hubert spoke of $350,000 in the red. That probably is true. When the parking lot is developed on that side, certainly more cars are going to use Route 10 and Route 31. And when they find they can cut through and use town roads, what's going to happen is that they're going to be using those roads, causing degradation to those roads. Is going to impact on those roads. Certainly $350,000 is close. We also, having served as a former selectman on the planning board for 7 years, John Workala mentioned it earlier, we expected when we first talked about this issue that there would certainly be a help from the town of Goshen, or from the state for the town of Goshen, as this development comes in, and it's coming in. My time is up. I've been red carded. It's the first time I was ever red carded out of a game. I'm definitely against it.
My name's Steve Wolf. I'm a 16-year resident of New London, New Hampshire. My family and I have been skiing and riding at this awesome mountain since 2000. I'm 100% in favor of this expansion, and my family would be devastated if the west flank is not expanded. It is quite evident that there are more speakers here this evening in opposition to this well-thought-out expansion. I am confident that the vast majority of folks in the Lake Sunapee region are in favor of this expansion. Winter sports are not just for rich people. Like all middle-class folks, we live paycheck to paycheck, but have figured out a way to obtain season passes. My wife and I ski every Saturday and Sunday and hit those occasional weekday powder days because we work hard to play hard. We have made scores of friends here at Mount Sunapee locally and both from Massachusetts and Connecticut. We start out in the sunny Sun Bowl in the morning, follow the sun to the summit lift, and end the day on North Peak. We are looking so forward to skiing and riding in the direct western sunlight on those dreary December days at 3 o'clock. Both of our daughters had the opportunity to work here at Mount Sunapee throughout their high school careers while playing 3 varsity sports. The leadership at Mount Sunapee provided our girls an extremely strong work ethic that will benefit them throughout their lives. Mount Sunapee also provides significant college scholarship opportunities to local high school students. One of my daughters was a beneficiary. I spent a significant amount of time in Utah and Wyoming at fabulous ski areas, not because I have the dollars, but because my daughters live and attend college there. Holly, in all due respect, Mount Sunapee will never be like Park City. The 3 Park City resorts have as much terrain as all the Vermont ski resorts combined. If anything, it won't even be close to Solitude, and that's the best ski resort in Utah, in my opinion. Shame on the local folks that drive to Ragged or Gunstock to save a few bucks. Your carbon footprint has increased substantially. Let's stop the analysis paralysis and build the West Bowl. Thank you.
Mike Adams, Goshen. Speak for myself, and I'm opposed to the expansion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rose. My name's Rick Vanderpool. I'm representing myself. I live in Sandwich, New Hampshire. And I would like to make my comments sort of directed to the science part of it. I'm a PhD ecologist, having run a business since 1988. One of the specialties that I'm commenting on is old growth forests. I've identified about 600 acres in this state. I've sponsored old growth forest conferences, and I've published some papers on old growth forests in the state of New Hampshire. I respect the comments that have preceded me in regards to the concerns about fragmenting old growth forests, fragmenting older forests. I can say characteristically, having done some research on Polygon D, it is not old growth forest, and although it might be deemed exemplary, it is 16 acres in size. Polygons A, B, and C are also very, very small. We're talking about a 30,000 acre unfragmented block between here and Mount Monadnock. The amount of impact in the upper portions of the West Bowl expansion area is insignificant relative to what happens every day in this state supporting one of our largest industries, the timber industry. Considering how these will sit over the next 40, 50 years before we maybe lose our snow base naturally, or our wintertime temperatures that allow for artificial snowmaking, is again insignificant relative to the remainder of the state. Therefore, I support the proposal that would allow for permanent mitigation and conservation of lands adjacent to this area. And I would echo Will Abbott's concerns that I would prefer to see these lands protected in perpetuity, and preferably without the ability to conduct timber management. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Zach Graham, and I am here to express my support for the draft decision of Mount Sunapee's MPP. I've been a resident of Sunapee for the past 15 years, and additionally, I've been skiing Mount Sunapee for 22 years as an athlete, and more recently as a coach of the Mount Sunapee Alpine program. I'd like to provide 2 reasons of why this draft should turn into a reality. First, the Mullers have been stewards of the region and responsible lease operators since the inception of the lease. They have proved time and time again that the decisions they make are in the interest of the residents, guests, and businesses of the resort and area, all while protecting the natural beauty of the state park we all love. I've seen this firsthand with the building of the Sunapee Lodge, Sunapee Express Quad, Alpine Competition Center, and more recently, Adventure Park. In a second note, I've also been a recipient of Mount Sunapee's generous scholarship that helped pay for my college education. I have no doubt that the development of the West Bowl will follow these same principles and help our ski area be one of the best in New England. Second, an expansion is an investment in the future of Mount Sunapee and the local Sunapee area. Local businesses, many represented here tonight, depend on Mount Sunapee guests. Bob Skinner's for gear, Salt Hill Pub, 1 Mile West, from Flying Goose for food, numerous other local inns and bed and breakfasts for lodging. The West Bowl expansion will be an investment in the mountain to provide a better experience for residents and guests, and will allow these local businesses to maintain and grow their clientele for years to come. Thanks for your time this evening, and I urge the committee to move forward with the proposed draft proposal.
Good evening, Mike Sullivan from Goshen, New Hampshire. I've been a resident from the area though back to 1970. You know, I'm really surprised that I'm actually here tonight, because in 1998 I was opposed to this actually while working at the mountain. And I was opposed to it because it was all founded on lies right from the beginning. The lie was that Cannon Mountain and Sunapee were losing money together. That was the truth. The lie was that Sunapee was losing money, but when they were in combination is what was losing the money. But we weren't going to lease out a White Mountain National Forest park, so automatically it went to Sunapee. Today I'm here and it's like deja vu all over again. I feel like it's already been decided. You've made your decision and we're just going through the motions. Because bottom line is we've got more lies and you're going to be basing everything on lies. And the biggest lie and misconception is that the Mullers were not into this for condos. But here's the thing, in 1998, they had a purchase and sales agreement signed with a contingency of if the lease went through, they would buy that land. Now why do you think that is? For condos. And they keep telling year after year that that's not the deal. So I don't know how many years ago it was, but that was part of their expansion plan. And when everybody wasn't in support of it, they decided to pull back. Now, we're not idiots here. We know that baby steps is the way to go. So now, that's not part of the plan. We're going to just do this for the ski area. You know, it's great skiing. Well, there'll still be skiing here if this expansion doesn't go through. But you're going to open up Pandora's box, and you'll never be able to close it again. And people like myself are going to move out because I won't be able to afford the taxes in my town anymore, and that's why I live here. So please, listen to everybody here, and I know it's been overwhelmingly against, just like years past, but just like years past, for some reason, I don't know whether it's because of the money that you make your decisions on, but please, you know, you can't put a price on aesthetics and everything else that I feel strongly about.
Apologize for the interruption there. I guess I'm one of the 650 or so part-time, low-wage seasonal employees here at Sunapee. My name is Eric Reinheimer, and we live in Ware, New Hampshire. Pardon me, and I've got a little bit of a scratchy throat. But we live in Ware, New Hampshire, and drive by Pat's Peak every weekend to come ski here. We've been doing this since about 2000. We moved to New Hampshire in 2000, and my wife and I at the time had no kids, but skied everywhere around the state, and decided we loved Sunapee. It was closer to home, about a half an hour away from our home, and we love to ski here. We've been doing this for about 15 years now, and I've been on staff now as a ski instructor here for about 5. And I gotta tell you, every weekend I meet new people from all around the region, people from Florida, people from the West, people from out of the country. I'm routinely invited to introduce people to the state that we call home. and to show them what we find unique and beautiful about Mount Sunapee. That's a real opportunity, and I love sharing the sport of skiing with people, and it's a sport that I love, a sport that my family loves, and it's part of our lifestyle. Like Steve was saying earlier, we're here every weekend. We meet a lot of great people, including Jeff Estella, who's no longer here tonight, but a lot of great people that we've met through the years here. And as an instructor here, I appreciate the towns that I drive through on the way here, the businesses that we frequent. We're here every weekend, the whole four of us. You know, we're a family of four. We're by no means of significant means, but we come here, we've found a way to make it affordable, to enjoy a sport that our family's able to do together. We do come here and hike in the summer. We very much appreciate the recreational access that we have here, and we support the local businesses around here. So we very much appreciate your decision and support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
My name is Carrie Rochford Haig. I live in Newport. I'm a third-generation skier in my family who also enjoys hiking this mountain, so I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my family. My grandfather actually skied on a trail in Newberry before the state park was even formed, and I would not be able to afford to ski here were it not for a family member who works at the mountain and shares discounted tickets with me. I love this mountain, but I am here to voice opposition to the proposed expansion. As much as I love the mountain, I love the area where I live. I love this area because of the communities here, and I fear what would happen if any of these communities become resort towns. I've watched local families have to sell their cottages on Lake Sunapee because they can't afford to keep them due to the increased property taxes. A strong community is built by good schools, the opportunity for good jobs and careers, as well as affordable housing. This plan benefits a few, but the state park was set aside for the benefit of many. And this precious public land requires special stewardship. My question is, when one chairlift and 4 trails aren't enough to compete with the big resorts, what is next?
Hi. I'm not really prepared to speak. My name is Rebecca Rice Robinson, and I was born here, grew up here, lived in other places and came back. And it's a beautiful, beautiful area. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you. And I'm opposed to this expansion. And I just wanted to remind you, and I should have been here earlier, but I had to work late. And I just want to remind you what listening means, really active, open listening. And I'm sure you know, but I just would like to remind you. And that is that we listen with our minds totally open and not anticipating what the speaker is going to say or why they're going to say it, or that you've heard these things before, but allow your own mind and heart, in retrospect, to hear everything that people have said to you from both sides, and allow that information to maybe come to you in a new way so that you can really hear people and what the concerns really are. And there are lots of scientific concerns, economic concerns, and emotional concerns. And I think that all of them are valuable and need to be heard and considered. I am a hiker. I'm not a skier. I have lots of friends and family who are skiers and love skiing here. I also hear stories from people who don't want to ski here anymore because, like another speaker said, it's not the place it used to be. People don't feel as safe skiing here because there are a lot of hot shots and people who tend to be rude. That's what I hear. I don't know. But as a hiker, I know, and I know from talking to Fish and Game and from talking to Audubon and other people, that lots of wildlife is disappearing in our area because of loss of habitat. And I know as a hiker, I would see rabbits. And as I grew up, just down the road from here, we had rabbits. I don't see rabbits very often anymore. Lots of things are disappearing because of our development. And I disagree with this expansion, and I disagree with this expansion for private corporate gain? Thank you.
Again, I thank you for being here. I thank you for your engagement. I thank you for your passion and your commitment, because I think one thing that's for certain, whether you agree or disagree on certain elements, I think we all hold this place as a special place, and we're trying to be responsible stewards of this public land that we all really have a strong emotion for. So thank you again for your time and attention this evening, and drive safely.